So I started using GraphQL a few weeks ago, and I've been liking it a lot so far. It's pretty lit. It's pretty lit, and the ecosystem's pretty vast, a lot to learn. And ended up choosing URQL for the front end client, and I wanted to set up subscriptions with it because eventually, you got to do these things. And I'm here in the documentations, and it's recommending that if I have an Apollo server, which I do, I like their playground. I originally used Express GraphQL, and it was nice. It was minimal, but I think the playground's worth using Apollo server, at least for now. I don't know. I might change my mind later, but whatever. So I want to set up subscriptions transport here, and that should be easy enough, right? I mean, they show you how to do it here. But if I go to the GitHub, uh, pretty important announcement here. The library is no longer being actively maintained. Maybe I should try to figure out how to set up GraphQL WebSockets. All right, so I go to the GitHub there, and I see that it should be pretty easy to set up. But there's a problem. And the problem will be apparent here soon. But first, let's see how they want us to set up an Apollo server. That's the client. This is a server. All right. We're just gonna copy this and paste here. All right. Now I've already gone ahead and installed these modules. Uh, Now this is not going to work yet because first of all, we don't have a schema, so we actually need to set up a schema. And they have an example on how to do that on the GitHub. So let's get back to that. Yeah, so we can grab this right here and paste it right there. Okay, now in best case scenario, this works. It seems that it might work. Okay. It compiled. So if we go to the localhost /4000, which is the port we set up, /GraphQL, we can see the playground, and it should work, but no, it doesn't. The subscriptions also do not work. Let's see. So it looks like our resolvers isn't set up right. Let's set it up right. Okay, so our resolvers isn't set up right. This schema doesn't actually include our resolvers. It's mostly just type definition. What we're gonna want to do is actually extract this into type definitions. Let's also put that back there so we can actually get a schema out of it, because we do want that. Apollo server would want the type definitions and the resolvers. Here it says that query define the resolvers but not in schema. We just have to capitalize these right here. All right, boom. So that works, but we should also want to give those roots here to the WebSocket server itself. And we're back to the playground. Let's refresh and see if that worked. Okay, so it did. All right, so we've got our resolvers working. This should work. No, it does not. Okay, so what's the problem? The WebSocket server part of the server isn't connected to Apollo. Let's see why. Well, this message pretty much tells us why, right? Let's see. Unsupported protocol, GraphQL WebSockets, and they implement this module, this GraphQL WebSockets module implements this protocol, which we haven't actually, which Apollo server itself doesn't actually support. Let me show you. All right, so if we go to the subscriptions part of the documentation at Apollo, they pretty much give us a rundown explaining what's going on with this transport library and why it's not working, or that it's not working, and that they have not yet implemented the the protocol that we should be using now for the playground. The GraphqL-ws documentation actually has a recipe for this. It's called, yeah, this one right here, right below the Apollo Server Express one, subscription transport with backwards compatibility. So this is actually how we want to set up our server here technically. So we'll go ahead and copy this essentially, right? And let's tweak it around to make it work with what we've got so far. Okay, let's go about this carefully. All right, so this is our Apollo server up here, and we probably won't need that. So let's paste it all down here. Yes, so here we're creating our, vanilla HTTP server, and we're gonna actually want to give it our server, which is the Express app. Yeah, and yeah, this is a little scary bit of code, you can tell because of all the comments, but we're not really gonna want to mess with anything down here, right? So what we need next is what do we need next? All right, so we've applied our middleware here with Apollo. Now we grab a GraphQL WebSockets server and a subscription transport server, which will be both of those things will be, conditionally applied depending on what our front end client um, chooses, right? So that means that this is not just for making the Apollo server playground work, but just any front end that chooses to use the subscription transport um, will now be supported by this Apollo server API. Let's see. Now this part right here is the important bit. This is what should make Apollo server um, understand where our WebSockets connection is. Um, if this is enough, then this should work. Okay. Mm, yeah, so I'm doing a lot of re-imports here. Okay, well it compiled now, so it's fine. This works here. Let's go to the playground and see what's up. Okay, so we're here on the playground, and just to double check, our query still works. The subscription, no, actually this is good news. This actually means it works, right? It's just not returning the proper async iterable. I think I know how to fix this. I mean, of course I know how to fix this. I'm making a video about it, but bear with me. Indulge. Now, typically, you actually want to pass the async iterator or generator function in this case to the subscribe method on a subscription resolver. So what we're gonna do that instead, right? And we'll actually grab that async generator and declare and define it up here, and then we will just straight up call it right here. Okay. Now this by itself should work, but it doesn't. And I don't fully understand what's going on here, but at the very least, I know that this thing isn't doing its whole job properly. Typically, you would actually want Apollo, Apollo server, what's going on here? Oh, my bad, misspelled it. Apollo server to install, okay, the method's not popping up, which means that I back from when I downgraded Apollo, it's probably the definitions probably didn't update. So let me just go ahead and kill the node modules and just reinstall them again. Okay. Okay, restart the TypeScript server. Alright, so Apollo server. Oh, come on now. Wake up. There we go. Install subscriptions handlers. Now what this thing does is interesting. What you'll find also is that typically we just want to give it like a standard HTTP server. But that's not the way we want to do this time around. And you'll see why. But here's what this method actually does. So in here, it'll take some server, do some validation on the options. Uh, it will pass our schema over to the subscription server. With that said, let's see if we're on the right track. Okay, alright, bad news, bad news. Okay, so our server just straight up crashed. Server.handle upgrade was called more than once. Okay, so I suppose in the background, Apollo server, once we set this up, will call handle upgrade as well as, you know, what happens here. Okay, this is fine. How to fix this is, although, you know, some documentation says if you want to set up a subscription server, you want to give it the HTTP server, it's important to note that this method also takes just any WebSocket server as well. And we've got two here, and the most important one here is a subscription transport WebSocket server, which is the one we actually want to support in this whole backwards compatibility setup. So we'll pass that there. All right, the moment of truth. This should work. And oh, and it does. Okay. All right. It fired them all out at me, but it works. Nice. Nice. Okay. All right. So we grab what the documentations said. We tweaked it around, and we have a working Apollo server that will handle the new and improved GraphQL WebSockets protocol, and also the old subscription transport protocol. All right. This thing's kind of a mess right now. We could clean it up, and I will do that actually. Okay, cleanup done. I pretty much hit all that hefty stuff inside of this use Apollo function. And it will now support it if you are setting up your GraphQL API in a code first way approach or in a schema first approach. All right, so let's just refresh. Bam, every second we get a new greeting. Nice. Right, so there you go. The meat of this whole presentation, this whole function. Now, you can find this on one of my GitHub projects where I have like templates that you can install under a project called AppSeed. It's just a CLI tool that you can use to fetch projects. Run this command. All right, it's a back-end project I'm looking for, the Apollo Express GraphQL WebSocket. Accept that, and then there we go. You can see we got this little function here. Obviously you'd want to run npm install to get all these, and then there you go. All right, you can customize this as you will, as it makes sense to your project, and all that good stuff. If this helped you in any way, um, I don't even know how much longer this will be relevant for, but if this helped you in any way, please leave a like. If you have some sort of criticism about my video, do please leave that in a comment, because I'd like to, you know what I'm doing wrong and maybe get better. Because who knows, I might like to keep doing YouTube.